Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I'm lucky enough to chat with Sarah Natochenny. Sarah is the voice of Ash on a little show called Pokemon, and we discuss the reaction to her casting nearly 13 years ago, how her relationship to the fandom has changed over her career, and some of the mechanics of her job as a voice actor. It's a great chat, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for taking out the time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Whenever I'm doing research, it's a kind of a twofold thing. I both want to find interesting things to ask you about that aren't necessarily the same story that everybody's heard, and at the same time I also don't want to step in it. And I've made the mistake of asking people about a deceased pet on accident once, and you just want to avoid those things, right?
Yeah.
And I know. For me, Pokemon, I'm ancient, and I remember it starting. Like I remember life prior to Pokemon, and so
Oh,
I think it
wow.
was probably my late in high school, early college that the first kind of we all got introduced to Team Rocket and the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's still difficult for me to get my head around the scope of this IP and just how big this is, and it seems like every 5 or 6 years in my entire adult life, I've gone, oh my God, Pokemon's still going and bigger than it was. Okay.
Hmm.
And then Pokemon Go happens. And for you as a voice actor, I know when you took on the role, there were definitely people that were not happy and it was not a consistently great experience for you. Um,
Yeah.
but I know that you were also personally a huge Pokemon fan. And at this
Yeah.
point now, 10 years on, I have to think that you have to be at this point getting to see the flip side of that, of if there were someone that yelled at you, oh my God, you've ruined my childhood 10 years ago. Now there are people who love your portrayal and have kids and you're making their childhood. Um,
Yeah.
what has it been like for you as a voice actor to jump on board something that is so huge, but then it's not like you came in at the fizzling tail end of Pokemon, um,
Right.
to have it then just continue to increase in scope and to make your home inside such a large project. Can you talk a little bit about uh, what the last 10 years have been like for you?
Of course. It's been 13 years,
Oh,
actually.
wow. Okay.
I should have started coming around more when Pokemon Go came out, and that was about 3 years ago. But I did a couple interviews, and then I kind of sat back down. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see what the reaction is, because yeah, when I first started it was my worst nightmare. I was 18, 19 years old, and people were coming at me on the internet and issuing death threats and starting clubs against me. And I was like, this is what being even marginally famous is. Cool. I need to rethink some things. I'm not in a position mentally, emotionally to handle something like that,
Yeah.
But stepping into it, I knew that it was a huge thing. I was a big fan of the show, but I didn't really think about the scope of it as I was doing it. I was just really, really focused on giving the right performance and, taking over a role that was so beloved by so many people. That was a really daunting task. So that was my main focus. And then I kept not thinking about how big it is. It was just a job.
Mm-hmm.
It was a job I loved. It's something that I went in several times a week to do. And it was kind of on autopilot because I got so depressed and I got so lost in my goals and in my desires. I was very set on being an actor. That was since I was about 12, 13 years old. That's what I was going to do. So what I was going to be. There was never any doubt in my mind. There was never any oh, should I do a backup career? No, I'm going to be my parents are musicians. My mom is a Broadway violinist. My dad's a classical pianist. They set their minds to do it, and I followed suit. Why would I do anything else? Until I got Pokemon, and until that happened, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not equipped to. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe that's not what I should be doing. And I've come around now. Obviously, it's exactly what I should be doing. I've figured out how to be stable emotionally and not let things like that bother me. But there are so many people, like, I don't know if you heard recently, just today or yesterday, another K-pop star committed suicide.
No.
And yeah, it's an epidemic with them, and the whole country's like reeling from that right now. And I've been reading a couple of, just just basic articles about it, and how they not only struggle in their childhood, like not only does it kind of ruin their childhood because they're just working all the time and trying to achieve this idea of perfection, but when they get there, they have people writing fake articles about them and bullying them and treating them like crap. And that's not what you expect to happen when you reach a point of success as an artist. That's just not what you expect. And that's what you should expect. They should teach that in acting school.
Yeah, but you
But
don't
yeah,
you don't think that the pinnacle is going to not bring an iota of control or any more um, centeredness or anything to it, where you don't have any, you're still having fake
right.
stuff written about you. I can't imagine
Yeah.
adding on that. I mean, I've said flippantly in the past that I'm glad I didn't. I cannot imagine trying to do junior high. I hated junior high, and I can't imagine doing
I
it with
hated junior
smartphones.
high.
If
Yeah.
if there had also been this ability for
Ugh.
like a social media
Yeah.
bullying, I really don't
Right.
know. I know where I was, and I really don't know that it would have been
Mhm.
okay. Um,
No.
and and so to watch these kids be celebrities and know that
Yeah.
it's got a kid like Olympic gymnast level work
Yeah.
bubble that you're being raised in, coupled with this
Right.
social media bullying on top. I
Yeah.
really I can't imagine it. I'm as a sci-fi or just as a genre fan in the last 10 years, it's been
Mhm.
difficult to watch the level of emotion that some people
Yeah.
bring to criticism about things,
Yeah.
where it you want to grab people and go, you know that's just a person at a mic, right? That recorded that.
Mhm.
That's just their job, and they're also a Pokemon fan. Um,
Yeah.
like, can you roll it back a hair? Um, but
So yeah.
yeah, I'm amazed. I'm mostly thrilled um, that you found a way to put your head down and go back to the booth and do your job and make it through it,
Oh,
and
totally.
and
Yeah.
find a way to still like your
Yeah.
career, and that
Yeah.
it didn't totally put you off of trying to do this. I
Yeah. Not totally. Especially, well, that was part of your question. Actually, I didn't really get to it. I just got negative right away. Yay, I'm fun. It, ever since, especially since Pokemon Go, I think that just happened to be a coincidence that the way that was timed. But that's around the time I started going to conventions and realizing that there are young people who actually grew up with my voice,
mm,
who are actually fans, and they're like, "You're the voice of my childhood," and that really changed things for me to meet people who are actually fans of mine. That's made me come out of my room a little bit more.
and while you were dealing with whatever fan reaction was going to happen to any number of people that could have taken that role, there was going to be a slice of the fan base that was probably going to be terrible to them.
Yeah,
But
totally.
on top of that, you were also dealing with a professional skill issue. For you as a voiceover actor, what was it like coming into a dubbing project? Am I just assuming that that is a little bit different
Yeah,
um,
no, it's true.
than regular voice acting? Was that odd to learn?
Yeah, totally. I learned how to do it at my audition. I never trained as a voice actor. I trained in theater. I did film classes. I might have taken like a commercial acting class at some point, but
Hmm.
I'd never really been behind a mic. I had like one job before that. But I had a great agent, and they saw that I could do the voice, and I auditioned for it. And at my audition, they stuck me in a booth with a TV in front of me and a script below that. And I'm like, how do I look in two places at once? How does that work exactly? But yeah, I caught on. I got it pretty quickly, and that's, I think, why they felt confident in booking me on the job.
I would imagine that the maybe depth of script and quality of animation are different from the show to the movies, but is the recording
Hmm.
process for you any different from the TV show to the movies?
No, we're just more excited for the movie. Yeah, it's really the same. It's the same process on my end. It's the same process.
Uh,
Yeah.
there was a quote, I think, from Frances McDormand about, I hope I'm not misattributing that, about the difference in like theater, stage acting and acting on camera, that it's, flexing the same muscle, but just a hair, um, like
Yeah.
the smallest flex. Um, have you found as an actor a different gear that you go to that you enjoy for voice acting?
Um, Voice acting requires more imagination because you don't have a set and you usually don't have a scene partner. You don't have wardrobe, you don't have makeup, you don't really have. I mean, I usually sit for Pokemon
Hmm.
because I'm so used to it. But with new characters, I do stand so I can assume a physicality that kind of gets me into that range that I've put the character in, vocally and emotionally, and just as a character. But what was the question? Sorry, I went off on a
Well,
tangent. In my mind, I went to a different place.
I think what I was trying to get at, I think we've all probably been through
Yeah,
enough choir or whatever to have somebody say, "Look, smile." You can hear it in your voice, uh,
yeah.
or make the express. Do you find that comes across? Do you feel like when you have your imagination really fixed on what's happening, that you can hear it better in your in performance?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, if you're not imagining what's going on, if you're not actually putting yourself in that place and in that scenario that's in the scene, I mean, personally, I don't think that's I don't think that's great acting. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. I tend to put myself in this situation. It's a little difficult with dubbing because we're going line by line. So you say one line like Q475, and then you stop, and they pick the take and take a second to reposition the beeps, and then you take line 478. So, and in that break, it might be a longer break, so I might look at my phone, I might like do something, but once I'm back in that line, once I hear that first beep, I know exactly where I am, and
Got it.
I just go straight back into that zone. Yeah,
But
it takes a lot of focus. Yeah.
it's not like you're taking a deep breath and delivering Ash's soliloquy.
No, I delivered a soliloquy today. I'm very excited about that. It was really beautiful. I can't say anything more about it, but it was gorgeous.
And
It's really fun when you get to do that.
um, you being a Pokemon fan, you've gotten to voice 30 characters or so. Um,
Yeah,
do you have a
yeah.
favorite thing you've gotten to do that isn't Ash?
That is an Ash. I played Super Pikachu, but off the show, I would say probably Vera in Camp Camp. That it's a small role. It's like 3 episodes, but she's mighty. Um, I also do ADR for film and TV, and I did some characters for Disney's the Nutcracker, the most recent one, I think 2 years ago. And I played, I forget what they were called. Oh God, it was a long time ago. But I discovered voices that I never even knew I had in me, and that's the best part of voice acting, is that you can discover entire beings that you didn't know were in you. I don't think you can really do that with on-camera acting because you're kind of stuck with what you look like,
Hmm.
unless you're doing like a full, unless you're, in Star Wars or something that's really heavy, makeup heavy, then you can be somebody else, or CGI, obviously. But in a general on-camera scenario, you're playing yourself with embellishments, obviously. So yeah, that's why I love voice acting so much.
Uh, I've gotten to speak to folks like Billy West and Maurice LaMarche,
Hmm.
um, and they've talked occasionally about it doesn't happen very often. Usually they don't plan for it, but being stuck in a scene where your two characters you voice are the main two in the scene, and Billy
Yeah,
West arguing with Billy West basically.
yeah.
Um, have you ever been stuck quite like that, or does the dubbing process kind of keep that from being an issue very often?
No, I've done that, but I haven't done it in. it's been line by line, and it's usually character by character. So I'll record all of Ash's lines first, and then I'll do Delia's lines, his mom, after that. So I don't think I've ever. There might be one time that I did argue with myself. I remember doing it, but I don't remember what it was for.
For you in a work day, is there a kind of direction of voices that you like to go? I mean, is it easier for you to start the day with kind of cleaner voices before you have to rough it up a little bit, or vice versa?
I actually prefer to do the rougher voices first because they really clear it out. They clear everything out.
Kind of start
and
from
then
that.
You can do like, you do like the screaming and the whatever first, and then you're just clean as a whistle. You can just do anything you want after that. I'm not clean as a whistle right now. I haven't screamed much today.
And before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about your work with foster animals. I'm watching a foster dog. Well, he's not. I failed at fostering him out, and I just have a dog.
Great.
but I'm watching him sleep on the floor now, and I know you do work with foster cats. Is it Voices for Fosters?
Voices for Fosters, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about starting that and how that's going?
Sure. It was inspired by a Pokemon episode in which a Pokemon passes away. And me and my director, Lisa Ortiz, we just looked at each other and started crying. My cat had just passed away. Her cats had passed away within a year of that time. And I started fostering kittens, and it was the most incredible thing ever. And we decided to start a little organization promoting fostering and talking about it and letting people know that it's not so hard to let go of animals. You get used to it, and especially if you can see who they're going to, who's adopting them. It's really an amazing thing to do, and it saves lives. And I cannot go another winter in New York City knowing that there are kittens, baby kittens, tiny little beings who feel pain and have emotions and are attached to their mother, dying in the street.
Yeah,
that's just in 2019, 2020. That's really just not acceptable. And euthanizing animals is also not acceptable. But that's being handled so well. And fostering is, I think, one of the best ways to stop euthanizing, because you give them homes. So, yeah.
In terms of getting involved with things like that, I would assume everybody can probably. I mean, almost everybody I know in Austin is at least somewhat aware of our shelter statuses and where the volunteer orgs are. How would you recommend people try to get involved with something like that, though?
Literally Google your local animal shelters wherever you are. Minneapolis animal shelters foster program, and I think most at least big cities in America will have a foster program. And if you're in a place where they don't have a foster program, recommend it. You can start it. Volunteers can start things like this, and people fill out applications, and you can start taking in way more animals off the streets than you already are, because random people become the shelter. You don't need the shelter space anymore.
Yeah.
The shelter space is just for when you're done fostering. They can spay neuter them and hold them until they're ready. It's a couple of days to be adopted, and the turnaround can be a lot faster, and a lot of animals can be saved.
Thank you so much for doing that and for talking to me about all this today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your week, and happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.